Welcome to our latest edition of Valley Veterans Forum here at CMAC. My special program tonight consists of two guests who are partners in Gallery 2. Gallery 2 is a partnership formed by Janice Stevens and Pat Hunter, Janice being the writer and Pat being the artist in the group. And before we get started, let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds, starting with you, Janice.
Okay, well, long before I became a writer, I was, as part of Gallery 2, I did the bookkeeping and went to the bank and deposited checks and did all those fun things. And with Pat's art, decided it would be fun to get into the writing. Became an English teacher, taught a lot of classes, thought I want to use my own writing for my own projects.
Great. How about you?
In the meantime, I was running the gallery and doing paintings and so on, and I had been commissioned by McDonald's restaurants to do a number of paintings for their lobbies, starting out in Southern California and various places. And Fresno found out about me and decided, why don't we have Pat do Fresno landmarks for our downtown McDonald's? And so I completed, perhaps about 15 paintings of various Fresno landmarks. Downtown, the Mukes home, the Jewish temple, the Californian, all these real significant buildings in Fresno. And they redesigned the restaurant to have a panel to show all these, again, very large paintings of landmarks. Meantime, Janice is teaching writing, and a lot of her students are going down to McDonald's to have lunch and enjoy the artwork. And from that point, Janice?
Well, one of my writing students was, and I call them my students, these are in memoir writing classes, so they're older adults, was Bob Dyer, who was involved in the formation of the downtown, a lot of the downtown history. And we just talked about history. I love history, and kept hearing about these people going down to McDonald's for their gourmet lunch to see the art. I thought, why don't we do a book? Why don't we do something that creates that history so people can take it with them, not just go to the restaurant for it.
Okay. From our previous conversation, I learned that you both knew each other before you moved to Fresno.
We were longtime friends. Our kids were in kindergarten together, and then our husbands and their different work situations moved us here, there, and everywhere, and we ended up, both of us, in Fresno. And Pat was a long-term sub, and when they asked her to be a math teacher, to do that as a permanent position, I said, are you kidding? You're an artist. Let's open up a business.
That was the catalyst, actually, to get us started with the gallery. And from that point on, we, again, had paintings on the wall, and I did commissions and so on. But once I did the paintings for the McDonald's, then with the students going down there saying, why don't you put those, paintings in a book, write about Fresno history? So we found a publisher.
Right. Well, the publisher came about through an introduction I had with Brandon Wright with Stories of Service. And Linden Publishing, Richard Sorsky said, let's do a book based on the work that I do, which we'll talk about later, with Clovis Veterans Memorial District. And I asked him if he did other publications, and he said, oh yeah, I do all kinds of publications. And I said, well, we have a book, Pat and I, that we've been putting together. And he said, oh, I thought that was already published because we had some publicity already on it. So I did the proposal for him, gave it to him, he accepted it, and we've been up and running with that ever since, with publishing with Linden Publishing.
Okay. Let's get into talking about your books.
Okay.
Okay. To keep it fairly straightforward, I've put a list together in alphabetical order. And I believe that the first two books on that list have to do with your travelogue along the coast.
Well, as we said, we started with the first books being the Fresno's Architectural Past. And then after we did that, then our William Soroyan Places and Time came up for the centennial of his birth. And then I suggested, did a proposal, Mainstream Publishing, for a John Steinbeck book. They were contemporaries. And our publisher said, no, we really don't want to do another literary book. we'd like to do something like the California missions. So that kicked us into expanding out into California history. And then we did the California missions, and then we did the 3-book series on Highway 1, North, Central, and South, coming out in the spring.
There's the Highway 1 cover. And then that goes from what part of Highway 1?
This Highway 1 Central, this is Ragged Point, which is a very dramatic view at Ragged Point hotel, restaurant, and so on, looking straight down vertically where the beach is, but off in a distance where you can barely see the horizon line. Fantastic view, and that's near Bixby Bridge, which continues, again, our travels south through Gorda into San Simeon, Hearst Castle. Of course, a number of paintings of Hearst Castle, and then moving down, of course, into the central coast area that so many of our Fresno friends go to, which is the Cambria and Cayucas and Pismo, Morro Bay, and so on.
Okay, that's the volume 2?
Yes, that's volume 2. But previous to that, we had the book right here on the screen, which is Highway 1 North, and that moved all the way up to some of the most beautiful coastlines I've ever seen, up into the big trees, into the redwoods, and up to Crescent City and Eureka, and the very, very top
part of Fresno I need to go to. I've never been up that way.
It's gorgeous, just wonderful, and basically untouched by humans, you know. So I fell in love with that area.
Well, and what's interesting about that, when we did the project, it was Highway 1 North, but Highway 1 ends in Leggett, in the northern area, but we wanted to stay close to that coastline all the way up to Oregon. So that took us through the Avenue of the Giants and Shelter Cove, some of the really rugged terrain of King Range, and just beautiful, beautiful countryside.
Beautiful.
And that Shelter Cove is so wonderful because you have to go through this little narrow, windy road to get to the coast, because it's really a little bit of a harrowing drive to go to. It's a destination.
Black sand beaches, mountains just rising right out of the ocean. It's extraordinary. One of my favorite places. Once you get there, because it's white knuckle getting there.
Now we're moving on to Fresno's architectural past. And I know you've illustrated.
That's where it all began.
Yeah.
Right
that was the first
down
one?
here downtown.
That was the first one.
Okay.
That's Warner's Theater, of course, and the infamous water tower.
Yeah,
you haven't ever been inside the
already.
water tower. Oh, just fantastic building.
Yeah. It's definitely a landmark of Fresno.
That's right. One of 3 in the world.
Second, volume 2. And that looks like the Tower Theater?
You're right.
Good,
it is.
good.
Another Fresno landmark?
And that's fun because book design is interesting. The whole process of book designing and cover design is very, very interesting. They see the Fresno's Architectural Past book, one, you've got Warner's Theater, the Water Tower, recognizable buildings. Everybody knows where they are. And you get this, and not everybody, Steve, picks that up right away and says, oh, that's Tower. You know, they think, oh, that's kind of an arty picture, but where is it? You know, so that was book 2.
Well, having been there on a few occasions.
Yes,
I know it well.
Exactly.
California missions.
California missions, well, what a joy that was.
Yes.
Traveled all over California. We frequently were asked when people pick up the book, they'll say, have you been to those missions? And I think repeatedly, because we've traveled up and down California going to all those missions over and over and over. And one of the discoveries for me was the submissions, the asistencias. Didn't know that much about it, didn't remember studying that in school. But to discover those ancient ruins, really, it was just very, very enlightening. So those are included in the book, these what's remaining of the submissions.
Well, what's kind of fun, too, about the mission book is that we took our dogs with us.
Oh, cool.
And I painted them in a number of the missions. But back there, we just saw the William Saroyan book.
Okay,
and then a William Saroyan book, Places in Time.
Yes.
That was, all of a sudden, it's looking at, oh my goodness, the William Saroyan Centennial's coming up, Pat, we need to do something about it. It was a super fast project, everything about that project.
Didn't they call it the Fire Brigade?
Something like that.
Where it was the book designer and the first chapter and the art and keep going until we reached the very end.
Yes.
And made it by that time limit for the
So
event.
you have to satisfy deadlines.
Exactly. Normally it takes a full year. By the time we submit our manuscripts with the art and the text to our publisher, it takes a full year to get that out. We had less than 6 months to get this Saroyan project out. So the name went into the catalogs before I wrote it the text, and Pat painted any picture. That's trust from our publisher, that he would say, well, go ahead and put the title in the catalogs. And then we had Billy Sechrist Jr., wonderful California historian from the Central Library. He fact-checked everything, so I'd submit, text him, and have him go through his fact-checking, making sure it was accurate
But a
all the way.
centennial was a centennial, so we had very much of a deadline.
Yes, if we didn't get it out in the centennial, it's after the fact.
Really?
You know, so,
Really?
but we made it.
Your latest book is also a cookbook based upon William Saroyan.
Yes.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And I understand right now you're touring and doing book signings.
We are.
to
We're
promote the
right
book.
smack in the middle of that. There's no time to breathe. So, but that came about through David Lometti was our contact with that, and he basically commissioned us to do this. And part of it is a benefit to the Saroyan Society, which he is involved in. So he came to us and said, I need Pat to do the art, you to pull this together. And I'd say, but how do you want me to do this? How do you want me to write this? And he said, run with it, just run with it. And so finally, I ran with it, and Pat painted it, and he never saw it until it was a completed project, and he loved it. Thank goodness. So.
Now, have you tried any of the recipes yourself?
No, I haven't, but I love Armenian food.
I have some friends who have. Yes. In fact, when we were at the fair with our book, showing our audience out there, there was one lady that turned the pages there, and she looked at this one recipe, and she said, that's what I've been missing in trying to make this one dinner.
Just came out for publication in September, so it's brand new.
It is, it's brand new. And what's interesting about that is I heard later from one of my Armenian friends that Armenians traditionally hold back one of the ingredients for their recipes. They'll give the recipes out, but hold back something so that people can't duplicate it exactly. But I do want to say one thing about this book, that it's more than a cookbook. It has the authentic Armenian recipes from George Mardikian's Dinner at Omar Khayyam's. We got permission to be able to use that. But to be able to use William Saroyan's words to illustrate what he liked, the foods that he liked that traditionally go back to Beatley's Armenia, that's him, and then the reminiscences from people that knew William Saroyan. So they talked about that. And then Pat's gorgeous artwork, everything from breaking bread to the sheep and the chicken and
there are
everything.
all
It's
kinds
beautiful.
of stories about the artwork because, of course, I'm much more known for doing architecture and landscape. And all of a sudden, I have to do fava beans and tomatoes and cabbage and shish kebabs and so on. So that was kind of a new game for me.
Yeah, but at least they don't move.
Yes, exactly. I don't have to worry about the light source changing and so on,
that's
and
another thing,
the weather. But that was, I have some funny stories about some of the things that happened when I was doing these fruits and vegetables. In fact, our publisher said to Janice, Janice, tell Pat to do some meat. And I love meat, but I could not paint a lamb chop or a leg of lamb. I mean, technically I could.
It was hurtful.
But there was something in me that said, I cannot do that. So we were up at
Are you a
Children's.
vegan?
No, I love meat. But no, I'm not one of those. But we were up at Children's Hospital doing some research for another project down the road, and there were a lot of sheep that were grazing out in the field, and it was just a wonderful pastoral scene. So I had my camera, I took some pictures of the sheep. And once I had the pictures out there, I thought, I'm going to do just a flock of sheep. And it came out to be one of my favorite paintings.
Oh, good.
Well, I gave it to Janice to give to the publisher.
And he said, and this is Dan Dunkley with HBE Publishing, by the way. This is a commission, so it wasn't with our traditional publisher that we always work with. But Dan says, what am I going to do with that? You know, this pastoral scene, how does that work? You know, and it really kind of threw him. It's that one little puzzle piece that you can't figure out where it goes. It's like, what am I going to do with this? But he figured it out.
He found a place, and it looks super
It's
in the book
perfect.
there. Yes. So I painted the lamb, but I did it in my way.
Lots of little lambs.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Let's move on to your collaborations for Central Valley Magazine.
That's
I
been a
often-
really fun project.
You've had, ironically, I've run across several of your articles in my barber shop.
Oh,
You're amazing where you find things.
And I'm always surprised to learn the expansive knowledge you have of the history of Fresno and the care that you take in writing about these places. The Fresno Shrine, we have that up on the monitor right now, and the Fresno Shrine piece.
That's
was
the Buddhist temple.
Buddhist temple.
And it is the Fresno Shrine to an ancient faith. It's a beautiful old building. It's mostly used for offices now. The congregation has moved north. But that was an invitation by Valerie Bender, who has since passed on, who's vice president of custom publications through the Fresno Bee. And they were starting this brand new magazine called Central Valley Magazine, and asked if we might be interested in doing this pastimes column. Love it. We love history. We've done history. And so it's a perfect fit for us. So we love doing it. We love checking out subjects and researching them. And I wish I could hold on to everything I ever learned, because I forget sometimes what I've researched and written about. But it's a fun project where we appreciate the opportunity to write for them.
Now, another one that we have an illustration for is the Harris Ranch piece that you did.
Yeah.
But also, here it is
There
now.
it
But
is, yeah. Yeah.
why don't you tell us a little bit about that piece and the history of?
Well, we went out to Harris Ranch, and I took some pictures, and we did some talking to people and so on. And of course, we've known about Harris Ranch for years, but we've been following our favorite racehorse. I am not really a race fan, or I haven't been up until the last few years. And when California Chrome was bred and raised in Coalinga, in our valley, all of a sudden I became a big
fan.
race fan.
Well, and researching for the story, it had to encompass all of Harris Ranch, the horse division and the packing and all of that.
Yes.
Is Pat's most unfavorite subject. But the whole thing that goes along with Harris Ranch had to be done, so we were given permission to go out to tour the horse division with David McLaughlin, who is the division director out there. And so he took us in his truck all around, showed us the pasture scenes where California cavorted, and the barn where he was born, and Pat took a lot of pictures, and it was a fabulous experience.
Well,
Oh, it certainly was.
I look forward to the Fresno Fair every year just because of the horse
Yes.
races.
Oh, yes.
And I was
yes.
probably losing some money when you were signing your books there.
Probably.
Could be, could be. I haven't
But-
gambled, but I certainly am a big California
Well, the horse
fan.
racing is so colorful.
Yes.
Oh,
And,
yes,
and, you
yes.
know, you get your money's worth even if you're not winning just by watching
Exactly.
the thing happen.
Yes.
Well, and how often have we had a local horse that has gone on to win and be such a, what I say, inspiration to so many people? The horse that didn't cost much money, that had problems and
Yeah.
gave his mother problems in childbirth or horse birth and so on. Just kind of like that underdog, and he became, again, super dog.
A big mover. Another piece that you did, which you don't have an illustration for, but it was close to home literally for me, is the one about the old school that stood at Minnewawa and
Yes.
Shepherd.
Oh, the Garfield School. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The arch, the Garfield Arch. That's all that's remaining of that school.
Yeah, the reason it's so fascinating to me is because I drive by that corner so
Yes.
often, and all that exists now is the foundation
Exactly.
and
And the
original part of
arch.
it. But to see your illustration of what it looked like back in
Exactly.
those days, did you have to? How were you able to come up with the source of material to do those paintings?
But that's easy, because I was there when it was a whole school.
Oh, really?
I took a bunch of my artist friends from the gallery, Gallery 2. We were actually sitting out in front of that school when it was totally intact. Of course, nobody was attending there. It was just sitting there, relatively abandoned and so on. And so I saw, and I painted it the way it was originally. So again, and for people to wonder again what that arch was or what it came from, it was the brick part of an old wooden school that was a one-room schoolhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful part of our Clovis history.
A fascinating history that I never knew until I read that article in my barbershop.
In your barbershop. Now, you might want to subscribe to the Fresno Bee. If you're in the Clovis and Fresno area, you'll get the Central
Well, that's
Valley
Central Valley
Magazine.
Magazine, yeah. No, it's a wonderful magazine.
Thank you.
And I know you've done other pieces in there.
Yes,
too.
3 years. It's about three and a half
years.
years that we've been doing this. It started as every 2 months it would come out, then they went to the once a month. So it keeps us popping, coming up with those stories. And Pat talked about the research. We love our research, and we like to go to the place and actually get, Pat likes her own pictures and likes to get her own research. And I love my books. I have a bunch of them that I go to when we pick a topic. And I check, make sure I have the research, and then sometimes it takes us out. We just finished a story on the Madera County Courthouse, the historical county courthouse, and got the tour of that, was able to go out and get literature and history on that. So it's fun. Takes us out about, and we learn too.
I think one of the ones I really enjoyed was going to Colonel Allensworth State Park, which is between here and Bakersfield off to the west.
What's the name of that town? I can't remember the name of the town, but he actually founded that settlement, right?
Allensworth.
Yes. Alpaw, and I forget, there's another little community right there, but Alpaw is pretty close to it.
Yes.
Just out in the middle of nowhere.
Out in the middle of nowhere, and it is a fascinating history.
Absolutely. So we learn a lot when we do these articles, and I just love to go out and stomp around on the ground there and get different pictures and kind of get a feel of what it was like when this was actually an existing,
Get the true feeling of the history behind these places.
Well, and something that's really important to both of us, we both serve on the Historic Records and Landmarks Commission. And that deals with threatened properties, threatened landmarks. And so that's part of the mission for what we like to do when we do these projects, is to see what's threatened, which that Garfield Arch, how much longer will the arch stand? So we'll preserve it. We'll do our own preservation by keeping a legacy of that history. So tomorrow it might be gone, but we've got it down.
Now, do you have any other books in the works or in the planning stages?
Well, our Highway 1 South will be out in the spring. So that's going to be the last of the Highway 1 series. And then we've proposed a couple of projects to our publisher. I did a couple of proposals in August. A proposal is a thorough proposal. It covers the gamut of a table of contents and sample chapters and things like that. And we proposed it, and it's on the thinking plate. We haven't heard the answer yet, but we'd like to do California landmarks and cover some of those.
That'd be great. You could probably consult with other budding authors too. I know you have for the CVMD, but your knowledge of putting a project through the whole process and getting it published would probably be helpful to many other budding
I have
writers.
two writing for pub classes. They're both maxed. They're both full.
Yeah.
A number of them, and some of them you've interviewed here on Veterans Forum. Tom Morton with Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Certainly Annie Biggs and the Swan Garden. Children's picture books. We just cover all of that, whatever their projects are, and we go from the submission to the finished product.
Excellent.
So I'm proud of my people.
Excellent. Any other comments you'd like to make?
We love our history, and we want to continue doing that in the Central Valley Magazine as well as our history books. It's something where life goes so fast, and we kind of forget what has happened and what used to be. And for us to create the images and the stories of part of our California, part of our valley, it's very, very important to us. We just hope to continue doing this forever.
And we appreciate your inviting us to be on this forum too. share what we love to do.
You know, it's one thing I've found. When you find something that you like to do, you're willing to, it makes it much easier for you to get up in the morning.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
And then when you go to sleep at night, you've got on your mind
And you
how
can't
to
sleep.
fulfill my project.
Right.
Again, it's been a pleasure having you both
Thank you.
both here. Why don't, before we leave, why don't you tell us how you can acquire copies of your published work, either directly through Gallery 2 and or other sources?
They're all available in mainstream opportunities. Barnes and Noble, Gallery 2, where our business is, a book barn out in Clovis, Amazon.com. You can order anything off of any of those sources.
But you can stop by Gallery 2 and
We
purchase.
love to have people come by
If you
because
want
then
them
we can talk to them.
autographed, yes.
Okay.
And we
Well,
can sign them
There
for
you
them.
go.
Yes.
Gallery 2
Personalize
again,
them.
That's right.
for our audience. Where is
Gallery
it located?
2, 1490 West Shaw, Suite G, and that's Fresno, 93711.
And that's between Fruit and West on the north side of the street.
Yeah,
Parking out in front,
parking. I
parking
know.
in back.
It's fairly easy parking. I've been there.
Not bad.
But
And full-blown paintings, full-size paintings all over the gallery that you can see, besides the little
It
ones
is an
that
art gallery
show up in
besides a
books.
book.
and I noticed you have classes there too.
Oh, yes.
Well, you had a class going on
I sure
one day
do.
when I came by.
Absolutely. Pretty much filled up right now, but anybody who wants to learn how to draw and paint, give us a call.
Oh, that's excellent.
So,
Well, again, I'd like to thank you both for joining us today. It's been delightful having you on the show.
thank
And I'd
you.
like to thank our audience for joining us again. Here are our latest edition of Valley Veterans Forum here at CMAC, and hope that you will join us again for our next upcoming program. Thanks again. Thank you for joining us here at CMAC for our latest edition of Valley Veterans Forum. We look forward to having you join us again for future episodes of Valley Veterans Forum, and hope you will keep tuned in either at CMAC, on YouTube, or Vimeo.